How can you possibly believe that a man executed by Roman soldiers and buried in a cave tomb came to life 3 days later? It's almost absurd, but I'm going to give you 3 reasons why the resurrection of Jesus is not only believable, but it's also a solution to a big historical problem. And if it's genuinely historical, then it has huge power to transform your life for the better, giving you meaning and purpose in the world. From the events of just 3 days in the 1st century AD, Christianity emerged and has changed the course of human history and made an indelible mark on society, culture, language and thinking the whole world over. A group of Jews began preaching that a man who had been crucified was actually the expected Jewish Messiah, that is, the one who was going to come as king and usher in God's rule on earth, his kingdom. Christianity flourished despite persecution, and the rest, as they say, is history. But why? This is the big problem of history. It's like a hole in history that needs filling. What happened in those 3 days that generated this huge religious and cultural movement? Why did fishermen from the obscure Galilee province begin proclaiming that Jesus of Nazareth was alive again? I believe that the resurrection of Jesus is the only thing that actually makes sense of the historical data. It's the only event that has sufficient explanatory power to fill that historical gap. Now, there's a lot that could be said, which I've written about in a short booklet called The Hole in History, but here are just 3 reasons why I believe this. The first reason is about the basic facts around the burial of Jesus, and to be clear, I'm using the New Testament text as any historical source, but these facts are pretty much corroborated by non-Christian sources anyway, such as Tacitus or Josephus. So, Jesus was an itinerant preacher from Galilee. He was arrested and tried just before Passover. He was crucified and his body placed in a nearby tomb, but on the 3rd day after his death, the tomb was empty. These are the facts. Now, how do we know this about the empty tomb, for example? Well, when the followers of Jesus claimed that he'd been resurrected, a quick and easy way for the Jewish authorities to quash all the speculation would have been to produce his body and put it on public display. That would have suppressed the excitement, prevented Christianity from winning the hearts and minds of the people, and halting the religion from gaining any kind of traction. This didn't happen. There isn't the slightest hint in any of the records or accounts that the Jewish rulers or the Roman soldiers even thought about going to find the body and put it on display. So we can safely assume that the authorities also knew that the tomb was empty. Indeed, in the Gospel of Matthew, there's a Christian tradition about the guards who were placed outside the tomb of Jesus, taking bribes to say that the disciples had stolen the body. And the fact that this is included as a counter to the official explanation that the disciples took the body of Jesus away is evidence that the authorities weren't denying that the tomb was empty. They were attempting to explain the empty tomb, not deny it. Everybody accepted that the tomb was empty. Well, what could have happened then? Maybe the disciples had actually stolen the body. And this leads into my second point, which is about the fact that the first Christians had not seen this coming at all. And that means it's implausible to believe that they had actually taken his body to try and fake a resurrection. We need to be really clear about this. Jewish culture at the time of Jesus simply did not expect resurrection to happen in the manner that was claimed about Jesus. You see, the concept and idea of resurrection, the reviving of a body to life again, was within Jewish tradition and a part of their belief system, but only imagined possible during the events of the end times or the last days, when many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. That's in Daniel chapter 12. And so the disciples of Jesus, themselves thoroughly Jewish, would not have expected Jesus' resurrection at all. Indeed, the Christian writings, which we might assume should have been written favourably towards these followers of Jesus, who became the leaders of this religious sect, they unabashedly show how time and time again the disciples failed to understand Jesus when he tried to explain this to them. It was absolutely inconceivable to them that the promised Messiah would be violently killed and then rise again on the third day. This promised Jewish saviour was supposed to vanquish their oppressors, not allow himself to be arrested, fail to defend himself in court, and be brutally murdered on the strength of false accusations and libel. So it is all the more surprising, against all odds in fact, that the small group of disciples were emboldened overnight to tell anyone and everyone that their acclaimed saviour had died, but had risen again to life. They did this, though. The very existence of Christianity is witness to that. And it's even more surprising that those who were opposed to Jesus became Christians. People such as Saul of Tarsus, who was the Apostle Paul. Once fervently opposed to the early followers of Jesus and the idea of his resurrection, he turned his life around, choosing suffering, loss of status, persecution and hardship instead, for an innovation, this claim that Jesus had been raised from the dead. So, what could have happened that put this idea within the disciples' minds? What could have happened that persuaded Paul to accept this innovation, this new idea? This isn't something that was anticipated by anyone. Once a Messiah candidate was dead, you didn't carry on believing that he was the Messiah, you ditched him and got another one. A dead Messiah was a failed Messiah, except these people claimed the exact opposite, and this strongly suggests that something eventful had happened shortly after the crucifixion of Jesus. So, with the facts around the burial of Jesus, especially the empty tomb, and a set of disciples who had no prior belief that Jesus could possibly be raised, yet who were transformed into fearless preachers, genuinely believing their claims, my third reason is all about the possible explanations. More specifically, the fact that no explanation adequately accounts for the facts, other than Jesus' resurrection from the dead. People have come up with many theories about these 3 days. Maybe the disciples went to the wrong tomb. Now that doesn't work because the body would have been available for all to see in the correct tomb. Had the body of Jesus simply been moved by someone else? Well, that might account for confusion on the part of the disciples, but we know that when they did actually find the tomb empty, their only initial thought was precisely that his body had been taken. On its own, you see, the empty tomb did not and would not have generated the idea that he had been resurrected. Something else must have happened to give the disciples the idea that Jesus had been raised. There are other theories that have largely been dismissed. Jesus had definitely died on the cross, so the swoon theory has been rejected. Hallucinations only have limited explanatory power for what the disciples experienced. So what are we left with? The only explanation that adequately accounts for all the evidence and the historical data is that Jesus really did rise from the dead. This means that the resurrection of Jesus is not only believable, but it is also the best explanation for the facts and the reason why Christianity began transforming the world the way it has. Without it, we would have a huge enigma, a hole in history. But the evidence is there for anyone to consider, making sense of what happened all those years ago. Now, it might be logically the best explanation for what happened, but it's still hard to accept. It's hard to accept emotionally because the resurrection of Jesus, if true, it changes everything. It means that the world indeed truly has a God who is interested in humanity, in me and in you. It means that Jesus was who he said he was, the promised Saviour and King of the world, and it means that we ought to get to know him and his teaching and try to transform our lives following his selfless example. Here is how the Bible describes this most astounding event. God has fixed a day on which he will judge the world in righteousness by a man whom he has appointed, and of this he has given assurance to all by raising him from the dead. Indeed, the resurrection of Jesus is evidence not only for God's existence, but also that he plans to do something with the world. This is the assurance that he's going to act again in our world to bring peace and justice. So if Jesus has indeed been raised from the dead, think about what that means for you, how it can give you purpose and meaning in life, and what it means about how you choose to live your life, and where you choose to place your allegiance. The resurrection of Jesus was a history-defining moment in time, and it can be a life-changing moment in your life. And it's well worth stepping out into this brave new world where we have assurance that God promises forgiveness, mercy, justice, and peace. Thanks for your time here on Bible Feed. Please subscribe for more videos and also our podcast about many Bible topics, and for more about the Christadelphian Church that I'm a part of. God bless you all.